Alexander Mogilny belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Alexander the Great.
Why isn't Alexander Mogilny in the Hockey Hall of Fame?
Alex Mogilny has been a Hall of Famer. He just hasn't been elected yet.
It's a shame he's not in. Just a complete snub.
He scores! What a goal!
He single-handedly altered the course of hockey history before ever playing a game in the NHL. Then, when he arrived, he changed the game again, compiling a body of work that is largely unmatched in the history of hockey. Yet, almost 2 decades after he last played, Mogilny remains on the outside looking in, when just about everyone believes he should be there.
What he did when he came to the league, it was phenomenal.
His game, it's crazy. He can do everything.
You can't teach the speed that he had. He was electrifying on the ice.
And of course, he could finish like some of the best goal scorers ever played the game.
He had it all. He was the total package.
So what's keeping him out of the Hall? Let's bring Alexander Mogilny's remarkable career and bizarre Hall of Fame snub into focus. Admission to the Hockey Hall of Fame requires what exactly? We know the selection committee is made up of 18 people, former players, coaches, executives, and media, but nominations and elections are a secretive behind-closed-doors process, and criteria for inductions are vague. Committee members are instructed to consider a player's playing ability, sportsmanship, character, and contribution to his or her team or teams, and to the game of hockey in general. That's it. So how do we apply that to Alexander Mogilny? Let's begin at the end.
Off to Mogilny, a shot! 1,000 points for Alexander Mogilny!
When Mogilny scored his 1,000th point in March of 2004, he became just the 68th player in NHL history to reach that milestone. At the time, only 36 players had reached the 1,000-point mark in fewer games.
1,000 points, first Asian, it's pretty good.
That year was the last full season of Mogilny's magnificent career. The lockout robbed him of the 2004-2005 season, and despite signing a 2-year deal for his second go-around with the New Jersey Devils in the summer of 2005, a chronic hip injury that he'd battled for years limited him to just 34 games in his final season.
Won by Matt. Score! Alexander Mogilny with 31.4 to go.
Mogilny quietly scored the final 25 points of his career, went on long-term injury reserve in 2006-2007, and then retired and returned home to Russia. Since first becoming eligible for Hall of Fame induction in 2009, he's been passed over 15 times by the selection committee, waiting his turn in absentia with none of the fanfare that accompanied his high-profile arrival in the NHL. Alexander Mogilny landed emphatically on the international hockey scene as the youngest player on a Soviet Union team that steamrolled the competition to capture gold at the 1988 Winter Olympics in Calgary. 10 months later, he left an indelible mark on the game, playing on a dominant line with future Hall of Famers Sergei Fedorov and Pavel Bure, where he scored a hat-trick against Canada to clinch gold at the World Junior Championships. The world's best junior player plays on the world's best junior line on the world's best junior team, Bob McKenzie wrote in the Hockey News.
We knew very well about Alex. There was no secret about his abilities. The question was whether or not there would be a chance to get him to come here and actually play in North America.
Although the Cold War was just months away from ending, relations between the United States and what was then known as the Soviet Union were still frigid after decades of conflict. And because athletes like Mogilny represented the supremacy of the Soviet system in international competition, they were incredibly valuable to their government. By 1988, Lou Lamoriello and the New Jersey Devils had been working with the Russians for years to try to sign star defenseman Slava Fetisov to an NHL contract. But despite Fetisov being almost 30 and having won every international competition imaginable, the Russian government still refused to part with him. So for a teenager like Mogilny, who along with his line mates Bure and Fedorov represented a new era of Soviet hockey dominance, the NHL was completely off the table. And yet, Jerry Meehan and the Buffalo Sabres considered it a risk worth taking and picked him in the 5th round, 89th overall in the 1988 NHL entry draft.
Knowing that the social and democratic upheaval in Russia was creating great tensions on them, and the fact that they had no money, sooner or later somebody was going to find out a way to negotiate a release for these players and make them available to North America for a price.
It was a gamble, no question about it, but I think that at the time we all thought it was worth the risk to take a shot at a 5th round pick to see if we can get probably the best player in the world at that time.
If we didn't have the restrictions and limitations, he would have been in the discussion as a 1st overall guy. No doubt in my mind.
Chicago Blackhawks are pleased to announce Jeremy Roenick.
Guys like Jeremy Roenick, who became great, and Rod Brindamore, who did as well, they were playing high school or junior B hockey. And he was playing with the Olympic team.
Meehan and the Sabres may have been confident, but they had no real plan to get Mogilny to Buffalo. In April of 1989, Mogilny was in Sweden with the national team, closing out their dominant World Championship performance. That month, a Toronto writer described him in print as a 20-year-old for which any NHL general manager would trade his soul. Yet he was as far away from the Buffalo Sabres as ever, until a fateful phone call changed the course of NHL history.
I was in my office in the old auditorium. I got a call, and it was from Lena. She was actually Sergei Fomichov's wife at the time, who was Alex's so-called agent. And she said that Alex was interested in coming over. Within 2 hours, we were on a plane to Stockholm.
The next few days played out like a spy novel, with Meehan and Luce frantically organizing the necessary paperwork for Mogilny to be able to return home with them to Buffalo. State departments in both Washington and Stockholm were involved, and the owner of the Sabres, Seymour Knox, even personally called in a favor to his old college buddy, George Bush, by then 3 months into his term as President of the United States. Then, on the morning of May 5th, Mogilny did not show up for his team's flight home to Moscow. He was already on a plane to the United States. His defection was complete, and NHL history was made.
He was the first player of his stature to come to North America, and the only player to come under those circumstances as a political asylum applicant.
When the story broke about what he had to do in order to defect, the courage that it took to do that at that time, I think he was really respected by all the players in the National Hockey League.
You know, he felt he belonged in the NHL. He wanted to play, against the best players in the world, and was willing to sort of take the risks that he did to make it happen.
Off the ice, Mogilny's impact on the NHL was immense. On the ice, he was a revelation.
First training camp he arrived at. We're at our practice facility in suburban Buffalo, and I had this little office in the practice rink that overlooked the facility. And when they left the ice, I looked over to Don and Rudy and said, "We don't have anybody on this team that can play with this guy." And that was the moment that we knew.
Behind the net, they try to work it in front. The shot, he scores! Mogilny on his first shift in the National Hockey League.
Just a super talent, an extremely really good skater. The first 2 steps were probably the best in the league.
Probably as good a skater as there's ever been in the league. When he decided to turn on the afterburners, you were in trouble, and you knew it.
Mogilny is so difficult to control with that kind of acceleration and power.
I don't know if there was any better pure goal scorer than Alex Mogilny.
Mogilny moves in. Mogilny shoots, scores! This guy's got some shot.
He didn't have to get any time, any space. He could just get it off.
You think about all the skill and the goal scoring, but he was an incredibly strong player. It seemed like he was on railroad tracks when he was on the ice. His balance, his speed, his anticipation.
He displayed skill levels that are unmatched. Every game was a marvel.
By his second season, Mogilny was a point-per-game player. By his third, he was an NHL All-Star. But his fourth season, 1992-1993, was one for the history books. Playing on a line with Pat LaFontaine and Dave Andreychuk, Mogilny scored an unbelievable 76 goals.
Here's Mogilny, scored!
There's some things Alex can do in a game that I've never seen any other players do.
It was a magical season. You think about 76 goals and what you have to do, our player has to do to score almost a goal a game.
Game after game, you know, that year, it felt like he was going to score every night. And if he got one, he was going to get more.
Mogilny streaking across the line. Mogilny shooting, scores!
When he scored his 40th goal, he got a $5,000 bonus for every goal to 45, and he got $10,000 a goal the rest of the season after 45. He scored 13 goals in a week and a half and bought himself a brand new Mercedes-Benz. That's how good he was. If he actually had a contract that was incentive-based like that, he would have been the first guy to score over 100.
In away to good left, Mogilny gets the
Despite his exploits, playoff success eluded Mogilny, even when the Sabres traded him to Vancouver in 1995 to team up with his old friend Pavel Bure. But a mid-season trade in 2000 helped the Russian star capture the most important piece of hardware in hockey.
When this guy gets in the clear, you're not going to catch him, and what a shot.
With the team we had, he was exactly what we needed. With his skills and his goal-scoring ability, and I can sit here and say this, we might not have won in 2000 if we didn't have Alex Mogilny.
The New Jersey Devils have won the Stanley Cup! Jason Arnott with the game-winning overtime goal!
Mogilny was a trailblazer, an all-star, a player who pushed the limits of speed and skill in the NHL, and a core player on a Stanley Cup winning team. Did we mention he's a member of the rare quadruple gold club? World Junior Championship, World Championship, Olympic gold, and Stanley Cup winner. One of only 12 players in history to do that. And of those 12, only 3 have more than 450 goals and 1,000 points. Joe Sakic, Sidney Crosby, and Mogilny. Pretty good start to a Hall of Fame resume. So how do his career stats stack up? 473 goals and 1,032 points in 990 games appear to make him a lock. But let's take a closer look at the numbers by using a metric known as the Peduti Point Share, or PPS, designed to compare players across generations and also to a Hockey Hall of Fame standard.
In order to build someone's PPS score, you look at 3 main things: the value of the productivity of their career, the efficiency that they played at, and their peak seasons. From there, you have a bonus system that includes playoffs, international play, and awards. Bundle it all together, and you've got a single standalone number for every player in NHL history. Wayne Gretzky has the highest of all time. His is 567. A forward from Alexander Mogilny's era starts to become a candidate for the Hall of Fame when they reach a PPS of 235. Mogilny's is off the chart. He's at 274. So he's comfortably a qualified Hall of Famer no matter how you look at it. That's the same number as Luc Robitaille, and that's the same number as Jonathan Toews. 2 players accepted by everyone as a very strong Hall of Famer and a very strong future Hall of Famer. If you adjust for scoring error, he's the highest per game scorer in NHL history who's eligible and not elected. He's one of only 6 players with 76 goals in a season. The rest are all elected to the Hall of Fame, so there's no doubt that Mogilny is overqualified for this honor.
So, once again, we ask, why on earth is Alexander Mogilny not in the Hockey Hall of Fame?
I don't know who's on the committee, and I don't know what they're thinking. It seems pretty straightforward, and they have criteria, and he met that criteria. What's stopping it, I don't know.
I would assume that there's people that are actually deciding this that either have a personal grievance for his personality or for his decision-making as he was a player, because he didn't like the media, he didn't like the spotlight.
There probably is less of a push right now to push Russian players in, which I think is wrong because of the state of the political world.
When I hear those type of things, I sort of saying, What are you talking about? It doesn't really matter where you're from.
Alexander Mogilny with the puck is as dangerous as any player in the National League.
When I start to think of Alex, and I think about him every Hall of Fame nomination, I'm doing my part to put the bug in guys' ears that, this is more than a player and he deserves to be there. I'm a guy that, sat around for 9 years, but the insider information that I got that, my name was mentioned every year, Mike Gardner that was there, David Poyle was there. These are guys that I talked to after that can reveal some things that went on in those meetings. I believe that his name has been mentioned every year. He just needs the votes.
Maybe it's only a matter of time before Mogilny gets into the Hockey Hall of Fame. But considering that we're approaching close to 2 decades of his name being on the ballot, it seems like the fire around the selection committee will only get hotter the longer they continue to snub him. All we know is that we were not able to find a single person in the hockey world who felt Alex Mogilny belonged anywhere other than the Hall of Fame.
You look at the totality of his career and it's pretty incredible. The point total, the goals, the assists, Stanley Cup winner. Do I think he should be in the Hall of Fame? 1,000%.
I can't believe that he's not Hall of Fame already, not yet. I mean, he's deserved for sure. He's one of the best Russian ever.
Without question, he should be in the Hall of Fame.
In my experience playing against him, he was a Hall of Famer. The speed, the skill, the way he played the game, there's no doubt that he was at that level. I don't get a vote, but it would be great to see one day if he did get honored with that.
From 72 to 89, no Russians had played in North America, and all of a sudden he opened the floodgates. He's a Stanley Cup winner. He scored over, I think, 1,000 points, 500 goals or close to it. Multiple All-Star teams, Stanley Cup winner. Put that up against all the other players in the Hall of Fame, and there you are. That's all I got to say about that.